They don't call it a lame duck Congress for nothing, but by most accounts, this one is a real turkey with so many important issues on the agenda. Jobless benefits expire midnight tonight. Don't ask, don't tell. Oh, and that pesky item called the budget. Can this Congress redeem themselves in the 3 weeks they've got left on the job? Who better to ask than our E-team? The election is over, but the team remains hard at work because, well, there's a lot going on, isn't there, Jim?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. We've got a new lefty on the team, Jami Floyd, former Clinton domestic policy advisor, and our reliable righty, GOP strategist Brian Donahue, dapper in pinstripes, and, of course, our friendly neighborhood Washington insider. Is that what that is?
The Republican uniform.
Jimmy Williams, not wearing a Republican uniform, but wearing a pocket square. You wear it well.
I'm a lobbyist.
I got a bunch of pocket squares, but I always forget to. They're sitting in my.
I'll bring you some.
I could use that.
I'll put them in your desk.
You wear cufflinks too?
Only when I wear French cuff shirts.
What about you? Do you wear cufflinks?
I do occasionally.
Yeah.
Yes.
I wear them. You looked at me as if I wouldn't wear them. I do wear them.
Do you wear them?
Yes, but I didn't know to wear blue. I will wear the appropriate lib color.
You're wearing what'll throw it off because you're playing the lefty but wearing red.
Sorry about that.
No one knows where you're coming
Everybody
from.
keep on your toes.
The people are confused. Don't ask, don't tell. How much longer does this go? Before we get into it, take a look at Robert Gates, the Defense Secretary today.
Sure.
The findings suggest that for large segments of the military, repeal of Don't Ask, Don't Tell, though potentially disruptive in the short term, would not be the wrenching, traumatic change that many have feared and predicted.
What are the politics at this point?
Don't ask, don't tell is a governmental policy that's based on lies. It tells members of the military to lie. It tells commanders to lie. It tells everybody from the top to the bottom to lie about who they are. It sends a signal to our kids that it's okay to lie. It's bad policy. It was bad policy 17 years ago. I'm a graduate of the Citadel. I'm an openly gay man. Somebody needs to tell me why it is that I shouldn't have been able to serve in the military because of my sexual orientation. That's crap. It's bad policy, and they ought to repeal it. And if the Senate doesn't step up and do it, then shame on them, Democrats and Republicans.
Brian, you agree it's basically a policy based on lying? For a second, I thought he was talking about the Federal Reserve. Just don't ask, don't. Aren't they don't ask, don't tell? I get confused.
Next topic.
All right, sorry. Go ahead, Brian.
I totally agree with Jimmy. It's a flawed policy. It's been a bad policy from the start. And it's sad. The Democrats have been pandering to the gay community for years, paying lip service. During the election cycle, Reid pushed this issue.
Now he's poking
Now
on
we're dealing with this in the lame duck session. I think this thing is going to be an entire mess. And the Democrats...
But the Democrats are dealing with it, right?
What's the mess?
But wait, the Democrats are dealing with it, right?
Correct me if I'm wrong. A Democratic president enacted this law.
And a Republican president, George Bush, didn't do anything to repeal it.
A Democratic president has been keeping this as a law. Our current president, Barack Obama. I mean,
did you just forget the 8 years of George W. Bush's presidency?
Well,
I mean, did he do anything to do this?
A Democratic president was backed into Don't Ask, Don't Tell. I know because I was there.
Yes.
He had said that he would allow gays to serve in the military, but because of
the right-wing Republican
Congress was forced into Don't Ask, Don't Tell.
Brian have a point? But forget we won't even try the past. Does Brian have a point in the contemporary sense of the Obama administration's difficulty in delivering this?
This is not pandering to the gay community. I think the gay community would say that they have been anything but pandered to. Let's forget morality, what's right, what should be done for the gay community. The bottom line is Don't Ask, Don't Tell doesn't work. It's not efficient. We should have Americans serving in the military when they want to serve in the military without lies, without deception, and certainly to encourage an organization, an institution that should be based on truth-telling
will Congress do
lie.
Here's the deal. You asked if it's pandering.
Yes, they will.
It's pandering if they don't repeal it. If they don't, then it's pandering. I expect them to repeal it. I hope they repeal it. If they don't, I'll vote against them next time.
And John McCain said we should wait for this report to come out several months ago. We've now waited for it to come out, and now we should do what it suggests we should do.
John McCain, by the way, has had more gay staffers on Capitol Hill than probably any other Republican in the history of the Republican Congress, just FYI. Talk about hypocrisy.
Do you think that if they repeal Don't Ask, Don't Tell in the military, that they will then repeal it at the Fed? if it works.
Never going to happen, my friend.
I feel like the don't ask, don't tell policy applies to a lot of things.
It's a nice segue.
Not just gays in the military, but like.
I don't want to know what to do with the Fed. I really don't.
Welcome. Listen, Bill Clinton didn't want to know about gays in the military 10 years ago.
Yeah. Don't ask, don't tell. Your question is funny, but don't ask, don't tell seems to be the policy of Washington, D.C. The only place where they're honest about it is in the military.
I agree. Right. I feel like the entire, as somebody who's only recently, a couple of years now in the political universe, the prevalence of don't ask, don't tell as the primary mechanism of doing business.
The way we do business.
At least at the military, they're honest that we're going to lie about it.
But they're going to repeal it.
Group, the Log Cabin Republicans, a Republican group organization, has been the one working to repeal this. Has been the one who tried the case in California.
You're right. Log Cabin Republicans as well as SLD and as others.
You can't forget that there's support from both sides in seeing this issue go away.
But Brian, you can't legitimately say on national TV that the Democrats are pandering to gays on this.
I think it's pandering to lip service. I don't think the Democrats have done anything about this. It's been a flawed piece of legislation since 1993 when Bill Clinton put it into law. And I think it's a terrible piece of legislation.
If it's so terrible, then why didn't you say anything about the last 8 years when George Bush was president?
Yeah, to see the Democrats.
I think it should have been addressed. I agree.
Okay, great. I'm glad we agree.
We have agreement.
We have agreement.
The Republicans are somehow the leaders on this issue, and they're simply not.
You know, it's interesting. There's this rumor around Washington, D.C. that the Republicans, that the conservative sort of base is now going to sit back and be quiet about gay marriage, don't ask, don't tell, abortion, etc., all the social issues. And the Tea Party doesn't care. That's what I hear people saying. I think I heard Joe Scarborough say the Tea Party doesn't care about that sort of thing. Guess what? 38% of the Tea Party thinks that don't ask, don't tell is bad. That means that 62% thinks it's good law. No, I'm sorry, but I'm pretty sure that the conservative base of your party, they're still right-wing crazies. And guess what? All that social conservative crap is about to come right back out.
We'll save that for next week.
Sure.
Should we do that?
Yeah.
All right. Yeah. I love it. Should we go to the deficit?
I love the deficit.
Well,
you do?
Ask, don't tell.
Because that's actually
the ultimate issue. Don't ask, don't tell is the American deficit. What are they not asking and not telling? Well, total liabilities in this country, if you sum them up, I'll get you to around $70 trillion. That would be $1 trillion, 1,000 billion times 70. The Deficit Commission, all sorts of plans. Maybe they can cut $4 billion. Maybe they can cut $5 billion. That would represent 4 or 5% of $1 trillion, which would represent, again, 1 out of 70 trillion. You get my point. While cutting the deficit is an interesting conversation, unless we actually renovate the way we solve all of our problems, healthcare, energy, etc., we got ourselves a heck of a pickle. But let us begin with some of the wasteful spending, wherever it may be, and take a listen to Mr. Bowles earlier.
There are plenty of reasons not to vote for this plan. But one thing is certain, the problem is real, the solutions are painful, and there are no easy choices. There are no easy ways out of this deal.
So how do you reconcile the calls for austerity, some of which are valid, some of which are not? I'm not smart enough to know which is which. I won't get into it. At the same time, the lack of investment in the conversation I was just having with Tom Coburn and Ed Rendell about the need to invest and generate jobs in this country, which is really the only way you're going to get out of the $70 trillion problem, and there is no amount of cutting. How do you reconcile the call for austerity, Brian, with the lack of investment and the lack of focus on investment by our politicians?
Well, I agree that this is important, but I disagree in that this is so difficult. It isn't difficult. We need to stop the spending now. And I think the president took a great initiative in following John Boehner's leadership in doing a federal pay freeze. I think the federal pay freeze was a good start, but let's talk about some real deficit.
Those are
no, wait.
Right,
it's $28 billion bucks every 10 years.
It's
$28 billion bucks every 10 years.
That's not very much money.
No, you're right. It's not. You're right.
No, and I agree.
$28 billion bucks is not anywhere near the $1.4 trillion Bush tax bill.
Here's the problem I see with the debt commission, and I know Mr. Bowles and Mr. Simpson both. I think their hearts are in the right place. They have the country, in mind. But it really all comes down to platitudes. First of all, they're calling it the debt commission. It's don't ask, don't tell all over again. When I listen to your introduction, these are numbers we can't even get our minds around. I mean, how do you even teach a child what this number means? They're talking about the domestic discretionary budget and cutting it by billions of dollars, but they're not giving us any sense of what this means in terms of the real federal programs that would have to be cut. Are we talking about military operations that we're not going to engage in? Is the FBI not going to investigate white-collar crime? Are we not going to prosecute as many criminals? Are we not going to prosecute criminals? I mean, what is it? Conservatives are very, very quick to tell you that they think there's fat in the discretionary budget, but they don't want to cut anything when we talk about real programs that have to be cut.
And I got to go.
No, Republicans want to cut. They just want it all to, what did Newt Gingrich say? Let it wither on the vine, let it die on the vine. They want to starve government to death. They want it to be smaller and less effective.
Amen.
You know, and see, he just said it. That's his imprimatur. And I want them to want that, because that means teachers and cops and schools and hospitals and bridges and potholes. And if you don't want any of those things, then guess what? You need to support them. Please, I beg you, support less spending.
But isn't that, I mean, listen, we've run out of time, but isn't there's an aspect of this which is, when we talked about this, it's how big the pie is.
Yep.
And the truth is, Democrats and Republicans, both since 1945, every single one of them has raised the amount of money government has spent. I don't care what your party is. And the debate now is, why are we paying for these wars? Why are we paying for bank gambling? Why are we paying for all these sorts, as opposed to driving the investment, driving the solutions. It's not about just the size of the government, in my opinion. It's also in what happens to the money, whether it's a little bit of money or a lot of money.
Fact. Ronald Reagan didn't balance the budget. George H.W. Bush didn't balance the budget. George W. Bush didn't balance the budget. Barack Obama hasn't been able to balance the budget yet. Bill Clinton did. Did your party do that?
No, but here's a real solution. Let's talk about solutions, not hyperbole. We got to talk about.
Those are facts.
20% of GDP should be our spending, and we should have a limit on our spending and put it at 20% of GDP.
Fine.
That's exactly what we need to do.
Stop fighting those two wars.
Freeze non-defense discretionary spending.
One thing they have proposed is cutting jobs, federal jobs. Those are real people. Those are real jobs, and you've got to give those people their jobs. Those are American jobs. That's not going to stimulate the economy.
This is a legitimate big-time panel, I got to say. Good arguing.
Big-time talkers.
Good big-time ideas.
Or us?
All of the above.
Oh, okay.
It was good debate. You guys irritated each other thoroughly.
I love that guy. He looks like a Republican.
Yeah, I know.
We're going to take our Monopoly money and go for a drink.
Enjoy yourselves. Okay, listen, we'll print some off for you after the show. A pleasure. Jami Floyd, Brian Donahue, Jimmy Williams.